Hey guys, this is the MMA Breakdown, back with my updated predictions for the UFC Fight Night 78 Monterrey TUF Latin America 2 finale, now Magny versus Gastelum card. I originally did a predictions video for this card when it was still Kelvin Gastelum versus Matt Brown, and I did full predictions for the entire card, so I'm not going to go in depth with those predictions here. I'll leave the link in the description if you want to check out that video. Here are my in-depth predictions for the entire card. I'll very briefly run through all of the fights and just give you my pick and very briefly tell you why I'm making that pick. But this video is so I can give my prediction for Magny and Gastelum. So that's what we're doing here, and also the finale fights from the Ultimate Fighter, Eric Montano versus Enrique Marin, Enrique Barzola versus Horacio Gutierrez, which is not on Wikipedia here. It's not listed on the actual card. They have it listed separately as an announced bout, and on UFC.com it's not listed in the lineup. So I don't know what the hell is going on here. But that is the finale fight, and then there's also another fight, one other one with contestants from the show, Vernon Ramos versus Alvaro Herrera. So I'll give my prediction for those three fights. But it doesn't look like right now that Barzola versus Gutierrez is going to be on the card. I don't know. Maybe it is, but again, it's not listed here on Wikipedia or on UFC.com. And also, new main event for Fight Night 79, which is now Henderson versus Masvidal. Was Henderson versus Alves. And I did, again, a prediction video for that, full predictions for the entire card. So I'll leave the link for that video in the description as well if you want to check out that one. And for that card, I'm only going to do my prediction for the new main event, Ben Henderson versus Jorge Masvidal. So why don't we start off with that one? Ben Henderson versus Jorge Masvidal. So I picked Thiago Alves versus Ben Henderson in the original matchup, and it was probably a really unpopular pick, but I think this is a much easier fight for Ben Henderson, just given his style and given Masvidal's style. Masvidal coming off of the knockout over Cesar Ferreira, and he looked good in that fight, let his hands go more than he had in his previous fights at lightweight. That was his welterweight debut, but I think that knockout win was more a function of Ferreira's extremely brittle chin. But why I favor Henderson here, his style where he milks rounds, he tries to score points, and he just tries to do just enough to win. I think that really favors him here, just given that Masvidal, we've seen him be a really low output fighter at times, especially like in the Ayaquinta fight where he was clearly more skilled, clearly had the advantage on the feet, but just for whatever reason didn't do enough to win. He didn't let his hands go enough, and I think with Henderson's style, I'm thinking of the Josh Thompson fight specifically. I think he can come forward, land some small shots here and there, press him up against the fence, really wear him out in the clinch, and win that way. And I also think he has the wrestling advantage. Masvidal's a good wrestler, and he has some submissions on the ground, but he likes the Darce choke and the front headlock. He's just usually the one initiating the takedown, but we really haven't seen much of him at all on his back. So if Henderson chooses to wrestle, I think he can take Masvidal down and really challenge him there, score some takedowns. On the feet, I do think that Masvidal might have a slight power advantage, coming off of the knockout and over Ferreira, and also in his James Krause fight, dropped him a few times there. And he does have really good combinations, probably some of the most underrated boxing combos in the game. He goes to the body and he puts 3-4 shot combinations together. I do think his boxing technically and with the power is better than Henderson's. But Henderson, he does come forward. He likes to run you into the fence and just stall against the cage. And I think that style is going to work well here. And Masvidal's not a very aggressive striker like Brandon Thatch was. Who really came forward and who had a huge size advantage on Henderson. So I like Henderson to win this fight. I think it's a lot better matchup for him than Thiago Alves. I do think he has to be careful with the power, but he's really good at milking rounds. He's really good at getting the judges to score rounds for him. Even when he doesn't deserve them. I think it could be a bit of a stinker, but I just don't think Masvidal has the consistent enough output or pace to really put it on Henderson. I don't think he'll hurt him, and Henderson should be the better wrestler and better in the clinch. So I do like Henderson to win this fight. I think he wins a decision. Masvidal is very well-rounded, but I don't see him taking down Henderson, and I think he could outstrike him, but he's not going to hurt Henderson. And at that point, Henderson is better at going the distance and doing what he needs to do to get his name marked on the scorecard. So I like Henderson. All right, so moving on to the TUF Latin America finale. So these fights are all on Fight Pass. I don't know why they're putting the finale fights on Fight Pass. It's just insane to me. For the first season of TUF Latin America, the finale fights were on the pay-per-view main card. So this seems really strange and ridiculous to me. More people would see this if it was on Fox Sports 1 than Fight Pass. So I have no idea what's going on. And let's start off with the non-finale fight, Vernon Ramos versus Alvaro Herrera. This is also really strange to me, just because Herrera didn't do shit on the show. He lost his first fight to Hector Aldana, who got absolutely rolled over by the finalist Enrique Marin. I suspect that this was supposed to be Cesar Goku versus Vernon Ramos, and I think he probably got injured, and that's why Herrera's here, because Goku was very impressive in both of his fights, and I'll talk about that when we talk about the Enrique Barzola Gutierrez fight, but I don't know what Herrera's doing here. But anyway, Vernon Ramos versus Alvaro Herrera. So I definitely have to go with Ramos. Like I said, Herrera lost to Aldana. I remember him doing well early in the fight. I think he might have taken him down or was outstriking him something. But then once Aldana was able to get the takedown and establish the takedown and get top position, he basically just was able to do that for the entire fight, hold him down. And, I just remember Herrera really not making any kind of impression on me. Just got out wrestled and held down by Aldana. So if that's how he lost to the guy who just got completely rolled over by another fighter in the house, it doesn't give me much confidence that he can win this fight against a guy who did look better, at least in the house. We saw a lot more of him. Vernon Ramos in his first fight against Wilmer, he was the better striker, the more consistent striker, had a higher output. He did get dropped at one point in the fight. Looked like he might have been finished, but I do believe he also dropped Wilmer at one point. But had okay striking, okay boxing, better output and better forward pressure. He pushes a decent pace. But then his fight against Eric Montano, the semifinal fight, he got dropped right off the bat. And from there, Montano proceeded to submit him. I think he did briefly take Montano's back, but it didn't matter. He ended up getting submitted, and he was really kind of exposed there, both with his boxing and on the ground. But again, I still have to take him here just because Herrera didn't do much of anything. Just got held down, and Ramos does seem to have okay boxing, and on the ground, got submitted, but did take his back briefly. So I think he'll have the advantage on the ground because Herrera did get out grappled and held down. So I like Ramos to win this. All right, now on to the finale fight. Let's just do Enrique Barzola versus Horacio Gutierrez first, which again is not listed here on Wikipedia or on UFC.com. But this should be a barn murder. This should be a great fight. Barzola had an amazing win over Cesar Goku in the semifinal fight. And this guy did not make an impression on me with his first fight against, who did he fight? Oh, man. Enrique Barzola. I got it right here. Sorry. Had a mental lapse. Jonathan Ortega. I guess that's why I couldn't remember it, because I don't even know who that is. But Enrique Barzola, in his first fight in the house, he didn't impress me because he was just a blanket. And I actually thought he was losing early on. I think on the feet, he was getting outstruck. But then got the takedown and was just a blanket. Did try to get off some ground and pound, but didn't really hurt the guy, and just held the guy down for the entire fight. But then his fight against Cesar Goku, he was eating knees in the clinch, and it looked like Goku was going to get the better of him and finish him off. And then he just scooped him up and dumped him. And from there, was relentless with his ground and pound and finished him off with a really well-placed body shot right to the liver that made Goku actually tap. It was a really great finish, very fast-paced, and the guy seems to have good takedowns. If you get in with arm's reach of him, he took down Goku a couple times there. And he is short for the division, but had a relentless ground and pound again, and does have some wrestling ability. And that's how you finish someone with body shots, not Anthony Hamilton versus Ruin Potts. Horacio Gutierrez, the guy seems really green. His first fight against, was it Danny Salas? Yeah, Danny Salas. It was really back and forth, really close. He gutted it out, got some takedowns later in the fight, seemed to have the better gas tank. But then in the semifinal fight against Polo Reyes, blasted him on the feet, dropped him, and from there just finished him off with savage ground and pound. So, has power, hits hard on the feet. I do think he is really green, but after that performance that Barzola had against Goku, I can't not take him here. I think that wrestling is really going to be too much for Gutierrez. I do give Gutierrez the advantage on the feet. But, he got taken down a few times by Salas, and Barzola seems like a capable takedown guy for this level anyway. So I'm going with Barzola. Both guys are tough, and I think they're going to slug it out, and it'll be really back and forth and exciting. But got to go with the wrestlers, so I'm going with Barzola here. All right, and the next finale fight at welterweight, Eric Montano versus Enrique Marin. Enrique Marin, I think other than Cesar Goku, who was also impressive in the house, but he lost his semifinal fight. Marin was definitely the most impressive guy in the house. Not a super athlete like Yair Rodriguez, but I think was definitely the standout guy from this season. Showed a good jab in his first fight against Kevin Medinilla. Showed a good long jab, long strikes, and was able to pretty much batter him and control the fight on the feet for all of it, and has a good sprawl. But then in his semifinal fight against Hector Aldana, I think caught him in a scramble. I think Aldana was trying to take him down, and he ended up on top and took his back and subbed him out all within, I think, just the first 2 minutes of the fight, I think. So it was a very impressive finish. Seems to be good on the ground and has decent striking, decent rangy striking. And Eric Montano, in his first fight against Hector Olano, he got the tight waist on the feet, dragged him down, and the guy dislocated his thumb, I think. And then in his next fight against Vernon Ramos, who I already talked about, he dropped him right off the bat. Looked like he was gonna finish him off there, but proceeded to out-grapple him, took his back and subbed him out. But did get his back taken briefly, like I said, by Ramos, and that's why I think Marin is going to win here. He seems to definitely have the more lethal game right now. He seems to have a well-rounded skill set, and he's dangerous, whereas Montano showed the power on the feet, but his striking still seems unrefined to me. I think Marin showed a better jab and just better technical striking, and on the ground, if he let Ramos get his back after having him badly hurt, I think Marin, who just rolled over Aldana, is kind of going to do the same to Montano if it ends up on the ground. So Marin, definitely the more skilled guy. Montano seems like he has some tools to work with, but is just not a finished product at this point. So definitely taking Marin here, and I think he's going to sub him pretty quickly. All right, and we'll jump to the main of... Oh, well, I said I was going to run through the card, so let's do that very quickly. Lightweight, Valmir Lazaro versus Michel Prazeres. Prazeres is a strong grappler. Lazaro got the win over James Krause, but it wasn't that dominant. He hasn't really impressed me, so I'm going with Prazeres, the more dominant grappler. At featherweight, Gabriel Benitez versus Andre Fili. This one should be really close. I think it's competitive, a tough one to call. Benitez, I think, should have the advantage on the feet, coming off of a really impressive performance against Clay Collard. But Andre Fili, I think he has that wrestling, which is something we've seen Benitez struggle with. So I am going with Fili. Could go either way though. At bantamweight, Scott Jorgensen versus Alejandro Perez. Another one that I think is tough to call. Scott Jorgensen should definitely have the experience and the skill set to beat Perez. I think he can get by in his wrestling, but Jorgensen's just on the decline, even after coming back to bantamweight. And I thought he looked good against Gambier, and I even think I scored that fight for him, if I'm remembering correctly. But what's his chin like? We saw him dropped by Danny Martinez. Perez is a slugger, not technical at all, very wild and unrefined, but he has a chance of catching Jorgensen on the chin. So there's that chance, but I do think Jorgensen just has the better wrestling and has better skills, so got to go with Jorgensen. All right, at welterweight, Hector Urbina versus Bartosz Fabinski. Urbina did not impress me on The Ultimate Fighter, and didn't even impress me in his submission win of Edgar Garcia. So going with Fabinski here, who showed off some good takedowns and control in his last fight. So Fabinski. And at bantamweight, last fight on the Fox Sports 1 prelims, Eric Perez versus Taylor Lapilus. Perez coming back from a really long layoff. He's a good fighter, but Taylor Lapilus, I think, this guy just looks like a killer right now. Super athletic, a very lethal striker. I think he's just going to be too much for Perez, and he's going to hurt him and put him away. So going with Lapilus for his athletic advantages. All right, on to the main card. Lightweight, Efrain Escudero versus Leandro Silva. Another tough one to call, kind of closely matched. But Efrain Escudero, I think, has been the more consistent guy over the last few fights anyways, whereas Leandro Silva has never really had that signature win. We see him get out-grappled at time in some fights. Other fights he does better, but he's just really up and down, and Escudero he seems to be putting it together of late, so I like Escudero here. And then flyweight, GCA Formiga versus Henry Cejudo. I think Olympic wrestling wins out over crafty jiu-jitsu all day here. I think Cejudo is just going to be too big and physical for Formiga, and I just think he's going to hold him down and out-wrestle him. So Cejudo. And then featherweight, Ricardo Lamas versus Diego Sanchez. Lamas, I think, is still a viable contender, and Sanchez, I just don't think is really healthy enough to fight at a high level anyways. I mean, did not look good against Ross Pearson, coming back from a really long layoff himself. So I think Lamas is just going to pound him, stomp him. I think it's going to be ugly. So Lamas all the way. And the main event, what we're really here for at welterweight, Neil Magny versus Kelvin Gastelum. Gastelum versus Brown. I thought that was I would have definitely rather seen that fight, of course. I thought that was more competitive too here. Neil Magny, the guy has just improved a lot. He's a workhorse. I would usually say when a guy fights this much, and especially on short notice, you have to watch out for him just not having the gas at all to compete. I think we've seen that with Cerrone, like against Ben Henderson. His last match with Ben Henderson, he just looked completely flat, didn't have any gas. But Neil Magny, has done that before, and it hasn't affected him, so I don't think that's going to hurt him here. And Kelvin Gastelum, of course, with the weight issues, any day he could show up and just something could be completely wrong. But even when he's missed weight at welterweight, we haven't really seen him gas. The only time I think he's really had serious cardio issues was in his last fight, which was really strange because it was at middleweight. And he seemed just more gassed than ever, even though he completely dominated Marquardt and was never in any trouble. But after the fight, he was just completely out of breath and panting. So that was kind of weird. So I'm just leaving it out there that Gastelum could come in here out of shape and could just completely throw everything off. But I do think this fight is a lot less competitive than the Brown-Gastelum matchup, and I do think Gastelum is the safer, wiser pick here. Magny, we've just seen him struggle with the wrestling. It's kind of weird because the ground is one of his strengths, and he's really developed great back control. He proved that he can survive on the ground against a really dangerous submission guy like Eric Silva, and he can also take his back and just completely outwork him, out-grapple him, be the more technical grappler on the ground. I was really amazed how he was able to take Eric Silva's back, and his ground and pound from back control is just mechanical. He's like a machine. It doesn't look that big or damaging, but he's just real methodical with it. And he put away Hyun-Gyu Lim with that ground and pound from back control. So, he can take the back, but again, we've also seen him really struggle with guys who can take him down, even Kiichi Kunimoto in their fight. He ended up taking his back and submitting him, but Kunimoto was able to clinch with him, get him up against the fence, and got a few takedowns on him. Rodrigo de Lima, before knocking him out in the second round, the first round he was just taken down, got stuck in a mounted triangle, almost got subbed. And then, of course, against Damian Maya couldn't stop the takedown and was completely worked over, outclassed on the ground. If he's struggling against guys like Kunimoto, and Rodrigo de Lima, I think Gastelum, with his wrestling ability, is going to have a big advantage, being able to take him down and then hold him down on the ground. And Gastelum is a great back taker himself. The fight against Jake Ellenberger and even in the Tough House got several rear naked choke wins. So I really like Gastelum's chances on the ground there. But we've seen Gastelum come in and be really flat in the first round, and he usually recoups and regathers himself. But like the Nico Musoke fight, the first round got slammed, got his back taken, lost that first round, made the adjustments, was able to keep it on the feet for the rest of the fight and win that way. So if something's going to go wrong here for Gastelum, I think it has to be in that first round. That's where Magny can take his back. I think he can be the faster starter here, even though against Hyun-Gyu Lim and Silva, he was a slow starter, and he was the first to, kind of get hurt, and he had to make the adjustment. But Kelvin Gastelum has, been a slow starter, so I think Magny could come out fresher out of the gate, possibly take his back, get him in a bad spot on the ground. But after that, on the feet, Magny's become a real good rangy striker. He has a great jab against Silva. He was just flicking that out there and catching him all day with it and visibly, halting him in his tracks with the jab. But Gastelum just has the better boxing combinations, and they're more effective. He can hurt guys with his boxing. And he has good footwork too. I actually thought he won his fight against Tyron Woodley. I thought he had great forward pressure, and he really figured him out. Had Woodley circling with his back to the fence pretty much the entire fight. And I just think on the feet, he's gonna have the bigger power. He's gonna have the better boxing combinations. And while Magny has a great jab, I don't see how that stops Gastelum's boxing. So I like Gastelum on the feet. I like him on the ground as the fight goes on. But that first round, watch out for Magny and his back control. So going with Gastelum here. But again, keep in mind that the weight issues. If he is not doing the right thing as far as his weight goes. Magny, he capitalizes on guys, and he never has cardio issues. So, if something's wrong with Gastelum there, I definitely see Magny winning. But just based on the matchup, on the skill set, and given that Gastelum has never really gassed other than his fight at middleweight against Marquardt, I have to go with Gastelum here. And it is a 5-round fight, but Gastelum is strong. As stronger as the fight goes on, like I said against Musoka, he made the adjustments and ended up winning with the boxing. So going with Gastelum, I think he wins a decision. That is going to be interesting to see how his cardio holds up in the later rounds. But I really like that wrestling from him. I like the boxing. I think he can get it done against Magny. So going with Gastelum. All right, guys. Well, those are my predictions for UFC Fight Night 78, or the TUF Latin America 2 finale, Magny versus Gastelum. Thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts on any of these fights, if you agree or disagree with me. I forgot to say at the beginning of the video, follow me on Twitter. My link is in the description. But I will be back soon with my predictions for the now Rose Namajunas versus Paige Van Zandt Fight Night card. So until then, take care, guys, and thank you for watching. I'll see you later. Bye.